welcome back to What's Up WID, the World Institute on Disability podcast, where we discuss what's up in the disability community with activists and advocates across the globe. So today, I am so happy to share with you all my conversation with Damian Gregory. Damian is the founder of an organization based out of South Florida called Nothing About Us Without Us. Damian also has cerebral palsy, and the work his organization does revolves around advocating, consulting, and educating to ensure the inclusion of people with disabilities. So a couple of weeks ago, Damian and I had a conversation about how the COVID-19 pandemic really transformed the lives of people with disabilities and how we can take what we've learned from this pandemic to create a society that is more inclusive of people with disabilities. It was an absolutely wonderful conversation, and Damian is really and truly a class act. So grab yourself a snack, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. I'm so happy to have you as a guest today to have a conversation about the ramifications of COVID for people with disabilities and the dangers of returning to a so-called quote unquote normal. My first question for all of our guests is always, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, today has been a great day. Yesterday was very eventful because of the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I chaired a meeting yesterday, which was only my first meeting in person since COVID. And so there were a few apprehensions just because I've known all my board members for a long time, but it's just being in a physical space post COVID with more than 5 people is a little bit jarring and a little bit daunting. But it was also nice to be in the same room as people that I've seen in Zoom boxes for months and months and months. So it was kind of a mixed blessing day. So today is kind of a respite from that kind of activity. It's been a day mostly at home answering emails because I work from home anyway. So it's a nice respite from what was going on yesterday. But it's been a good day. We've been blessed with thunderstorms today, which is always awesome in Florida,
Right.
particularly. This time of year, we have thunderstorms pretty much every afternoon.
Yep. I was going to say, yeah, this time of year in Florida, the weather is insane.
Yeah, it is. It is.
But I'm just glad that you're safe and sound. That's all that matters.
Yes, and I feel snug and happy. So
all good things. That is wonderful to hear. So for our listeners or audience members who are not disabled or may not know what it's like living with a disability, or even if they do have a disability, every disability is obviously very different. So in context of your disability, I want you to explain some of the challenges that you faced navigating the world prior to COVID. How was that like for you?
Well, I have been very blessed. I think I don't want to start way back when I'm an old man now, I'm middle-aged. I don't want to start way back on a hot spring day in 1974 when I was born. I'll skip to the interesting parts. For me, navigating my way through society and the world has always been interesting and always a challenge, but always something that I've welcomed. COVID has been a different kind of creature altogether because all of the things that you knew and all of the things that were set up to make your life run and function in a certain way, all of a sudden have been kind of upended and turned upside down. So that has been the interesting thing about COVID. And I found it interesting that, I think as people with disabilities, we learn to kind of have to go with the flow a lot of the time because you could plan your day perfectly and then you use paratransit, let's say, and your ride doesn't show up. And all of a sudden the meeting that was so important that you prepared for months just doesn't go according to plan, or you arrive late or whatever, or you end up going to a restaurant and then all of a sudden, whoops, you didn't anticipate having to check whether there was a way for you to get in comfortably in your power wheelchair. And then all of a sudden, the meeting that was supposed to be a business meeting or a date turns into something else and becomes all about disability. And so people with disabilities have had to roll with it for quite some times in big and small ways just to cope. So whether that's something as simple as your personal care attendant not showing up because they had a flat tire, and that has a cascading domino effect on your day, that's just a normal course of business for people who rely on others in order to get through their day. So, I mean, it's been interesting watching people that are neurotypical lament all of the inconveniences that in my mind are minor when you consider all the things that people with disabilities go through every day on a regular basis, sometimes 2 and 3 events in a day.
Yep.
And I say that not as a woe is me thing. I say that as just a reality of what it's like to live, work, and be in the space when you're a person with a disability.
And how would you say that that changed, when COVID happened? How did you begin to navigate the world in the COVID society? And in what ways was the world maybe even more accessible to you?
Well, I'll tell you one way that it changed that was a little bit unexpected. Um, in way back in 2014, I moved back into my family home with my mother and my grandmother, who was ailing at the time with Alzheimer's disease, because we decided that we would keep her at home throughout the duration of her illness, because sending her to a nursing home was just not a viable option. That's not how we roll in my family. Yeah. And one of the decisions that we all made was that we were going to do what we could as a village to take care of her. And what that meant, in my case, was I wasn't able to do a lot of the physical things because of my physical limitations. I have cerebral palsy, and so I use a wheelchair pretty much 100% of the time. And so what we decided to do was, I couldn't do the physical things, but I could do the supervision, certainly, of her home health, et cetera, et cetera. Well, she passed a couple of years ago, in 2017, almost 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I didn't mind the experience of being at home, because I was with my twin brother, also has a disability, and it was just comfortable because we had been always a very close family, and we were always the ones that people kind of looked out for and took care of. Well, it was nice to kind of return the favor now. So that's what we decided. That's what I decided to do. So fast forward to 2020, we had set things up very much where I have to tell you that for about a year and a half prior to COVID, I'd started my business, and we had set up all the things so that my home was completely accessible business-wise. And I had a personal care person who came in and did light cleaning and assisted with making sure that my clothes were all together and all of that. Well, when the pandemic hit and we heard about how contagious it was, and the fact that the person that was providing personal care would be basically, we decided to go on lockdown pretty early. But we knew that that was not an option for the person that provided personal care for us. Well, what that meant was we decided that we would tell him that for the immediate future, we would not be using his services. We gave him a little severance, so he got paid for several. I think I want to say like 3 months into the pandemic, because we had no idea at that time what the pandemic would look like. And then eventually he left. But what that meant was a lot of the things that I took for granted, the ease of things with having somebody dedicated to do personal care and do laundry and do the housework stuff, all of a sudden that kind of got a little bit um, unorganized. So it took a while to get used to the new normal. Um, so that was a challenge. But then, what was interesting was so many things became more accessible in a way that we did not expect. Like my brother um, has worked at a Florida International University now for about 10 years. And one of the challenges that he has always had is how to navigate the physical space of the university. Like if he needs somebody to open a door or do something like that, it was always a challenge. And would you be asking students, and how would all of that work? Well, in this new COVID space, you're comfortable, you're at home, you're in your environment where if you need somebody to open the door, you just ask Alexa, hey Alexa, call home, and you call home, and then somebody does something as simple as opening a door for you. Or when for him, even navigating through the lunch area was always a challenge, because there are tons of students there, and it's like, would I end up wearing some of my lunch? Well, that doesn't happen at home. I mean, certainly you miss the personal interaction, but you also, there are advantages to it. Um, as far as work goes in the COVID space, it's been an interesting pivot for me, because a lot of what my company does is education and teaching people, usually small groups of adult learners, about the disability experience. During COVID, we had to go virtual and go to Zoom. And so you lose some of that intimacy that being in a classroom with, say, 10 people gives you. But you gain something else in that you learn how to connect with audiences in a different way.
Right.
So, and it took a while to get there, but I think we're in a space now where I finally feel comfortable doing the classes that I teach on Zoom. It's not always as connected as I'd like, because when you're looking at in portrait in gallery view at all the faces, it's hard to know whether you're connecting or not connecting, whether somebody's looking at their phone or paying attention to what you're saying. But it is something that is a new skill, and I'm all for learning new skills.
Absolutely. I think we've all had to learn quite a few new skills in this past year and a half. And yeah, definitely working from home has definitely been something that has actually shown in a lot of businesses. It's increased the productivity in a lot of businesses. But why, in your opinion, especially as a CEO, I want to hear your point of view. Why do you think that working from home is something that should continue for people with disabilities?
Well, I mean, it removes a lot of the barriers that I don't think a lot of people think of, particularly folks in the work world. Some of those barriers include if you have a physical disability and you're not able to do activities of daily living. And I'm going to break that down a little bit because sometimes when you say activities of daily living, people don't really understand what you mean. If you need help to brush your teeth and go to the bathroom and take a shower and get dressed and do all the things that you need to do in order to even begin your workday, and that is compromised in some way, be it a personal caretaker that doesn't show up or is late or got caught with another client or has something personal to do, that means that everything that you need to get rolling has been compromised in some way. So, I mean, that barrier is removed. As a Zoom user, your office is your home. So, all you need is a camera and a phone, and you could do business just as efficiently without going through those things. Then it depends how far your commute is from where you work, from home to work. I mean, often for people with disabilities who don't drive, uh, that is a huge challenge. How are you going to get from home to work and be on time? If you take paratransit or special transportation, it's a shared ride service. So there's a high percentage, no matter where you live in the country, that there's a high percentage chance that you will be late or harried or both, just to get into the office. And that is even before the workday has begun.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you need any sort of assistance in terms of uh, going to the bathroom or toileting or any of those things, how does that work? How do you navigate that in a world where you're expected to function completely independently? You can't ask your supervisor to help you go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not doable.
No.
I mean, and and and, and that's a real concern for a lot of people who have physical limitations and have dexterity issues. So I mean, for all of those reasons, it is good to work at home. Um, it's also good to work at home because of not having to reverse all the processes that I explained earlier. Because when you're done with your workday, if you don't drive, you need to uh, take paratransit back home. And often, for lots of people with disabilities, physical disabilities specifically, that means spending more time than you would if you were driving in your car alone to get back home. So, I mean, and we all have only 24 hours in a day, right? And it is exhausting to just do all the things that we take for granted just in a regular day. But when you're a person with a disability, you have layers and layers often of complications.
Mm-hmm.
So for all of those reasons, it's really good to stay at home. Plus, frankly, just the ease of your environment, being able to do things that sometimes people don't think about. Like I have sciatic nerve issues, and I have back pain issues. And for me, being able to take 20 minutes out of the day to take a stretch break or a relaxation break, even if I add that 20 minutes on later, um, makes all the difference in the world and reduces my fatigue a great deal.
Yes, it sure does. And
You know?
it's, yeah, it's unfortunate now that so many people with disabilities are now being asked to come back to work, and those accommodations are really being taken away. It's very unfortunate. And as so many people are now echoing this sentiment of going back to normal, what are some of your fears that you have of so-called going back to normal?
Well, it depends what normal will look like for you, because um, some businesses have decided that they will do a hybrid normal, which I don't think anybody understands fully what that means yet. I don't think they understand what it means completely, to be honest. Um, One of the fears is that um, all of the gains that we have made by realizing that you don't have to be in a physical space to feel connected with people, I fear that that will go away, and people will go back to Cubicleville, as I call it, because that is the way the work world has always worked. And and like I explained, I mean, for a lot of people with physical challenges, that's just not something that, it's something that we have worked around and made work, but it's not always the most convenient and efficient way to function. And I have to say that, I am a huge proponent, though, of people with disabilities being integrated into work culture, if not into the same physical space, because I think that that goes a long way towards creating diversity and inclusion. Because so often people with disabilities are excluded from the social aspects of life, of whether that's work life or social life. Um, because what do coworkers do after a typical day? They go to a
Happy
restaurant or
hour.
go to a bar, or
Right.
hang out, or whatever. And typically, those with disabilities are excluded from that part of it. And so I am a little leery of touting only the positives of being away and being in your own virtual space, because I fear that ultimately it'll lead to more isolation if the people with disabilities are only working remotely because it's easier. So I think there has to be a way to um, create inclusion that doesn't demand you being in a physical space. And one of the things that's been really cool is I've gone to a lot of virtual happy hours in the last 18 months. And I've gone to a lot of I've gone to a quasi high school reunion and college reunion via Zoom. And what was interesting about that was I just didn't think that it was something that was even practical or doable, but it worked.
It did. Yeah.
We sat there. We all said, okay, we're gonna get whatever drink of choice you want, and we toasted each other, because it's more. It's not about the what you drink and what you eat. It's more about making the connection with other
Yep.
humans. So it was, if you think about it, when you go to a restaurant, and you ask, what was your, did you have a good time at dinner, you're really not talking about the food. You're talking about the company and
Yep.
the feeling that you got as you left.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, unless the food is spectacular and you've never had that particular entree before, you're not likely to remember the food unless you're a foodie like me. I remember specifics of, oh, the steak was undercooked or whatever. But generally, most people don't remember that. They remember, the conversation you had or the way you felt, or, you know, the way, even if the service was bad and you guys made a joke about it, you remember those details. So I mean,
Absolutely.
you're able to do that in a virtual space and still be included without being physically beside each other. So I think it's gonna be an interesting thing to see what it shakes out to be, this new post-COVID work world that we all are talking about.
Yeah, I think we've all learned so many lessons, and we've learned that so many things could work that we previously, had no idea about. And yeah, I think it's about building forward better. It's not about going back, it's about building forward and taking what we've learned and seeing how we can implement that into our society for sure.
And realizing that it doesn't all have to be one way, right?
Yep.
I think one of the challenges that a lot of bosses are having is they're accustomed to, being the boss and supervising, 20 employees and seeing them all out there behind their computers. And they feel like if they're not able to watch them as they type and as they're on the phone, then it's not work. Well, the reality is you don't know what they're doing on their computer and you
Mm-hmm.
don't know who they're talking to, you
Yep.
know? So, I mean, what difference does it make whether somebody does the job until 5 o'clock or they take an hour in the day to go pick up their son or daughter, or, have a long lunch or skip lunch altogether because they started early at 7. One of the things that this pandemic has taught us is we need to be flexible. And flexibility is a skill that, like I mentioned before, people with disabilities have always had to work with. I mean, it's not something that is new to us. And people with disabilities are, as a rule, very able to deal with whatever ebbs and flows life brings.
Absolutely. And it shouldn't be that way, though. I said that on our last episode of our podcast that it really shouldn't be that way. We should, people with disabilities should live in a world where they don't have to be so resourceful and have the gumption to come up with a way to navigate the world. The world should be accessible already, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's still, despite the ADA recently having turned 31, we still have a long ways to go for disability rights. Can't get enough of What's Up WID? Great news! We've recently welcomed a new addition to our What's Up WID franchise, our monthly newsletter. Our What's Up WID newsletter highlights our latest blog posts, podcast episodes, videos, and news media features every single month. To sign up, visit our website at www.wid.org and click on Sign Up for email updates from WID located on the left, and subscribe to our monthly newsletter so you never miss out on What's Up with WID. What are some changes that you would like to see made in terms of our society and the way that it addresses people with disabilities?
Well, I think people with disabilities are still viewed more as patients rather than members of society. We're viewed very much in the medical on the medical model, like we are to be fixed or even to be revered or admired because of the challenges that we've come through. What I would like to see is people just realizing that disability is such a normal part of life that if you live long enough and you experience things long enough, you will end up being a person with a disability, whether permanently or temporarily. So, I mean, while what I do sometimes is something to be admired, it's not because of my disability. It's because of my character and who I am as a person. Now, sure, my physical limitations are a part of that, but that's not the only part. It's a mixture of many, many things.
And I want to pivot a little bit, and I want you to talk a little bit more about Nothing About Us Without Us. I want to know, how did it come to be and what projects you are currently working on within your organization?
What we do at Nothing About Us Without Us is we do education. So as part of that mandate, like I work with various nonprofits in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area to educate. Typically, it's people that are non-disabled on issues of disability. So whether that's sensitivity training as to what it's like to be a person with a disability, we do experiential exercises where I would come up with an exercise about navigating your workspace as a wheelchair user or somebody who's blind or somebody who has had other challenges, to kind of let them experience, even for a moment, the the things that they take for granted as being non-disabled. Mm-hmm. So I do that, and then I do some teaching at nonprofits on the disability experience as well. What was it like before the ADA? What did that mean? You know, I grew up in a time, because I'm middle-aged now, where the ADA was not something that we took for granted at all. And so the going to a restaurant or going to even school, you had to find out before you went to school, before the school year started, if you switched, whether the school was accessible, whether there'd be bathrooms that you could use, whether in the cafeteria, how lunch would work. You'd have to figure all of that stuff out. Now, typically, not that all architectural barriers have been removed, but many of the barriers that existed in I graduated high school in 93, so many of the barriers that existed even at my high school um, have been, have gone away. It doesn't mean that all the architectural barriers are gone, but a great many of them. I think now what the biggest challenge that we have to face is the attitudinal barriers that come with a, a group of people that are, millions and millions of people strong, who now are expecting um, acceptance and inclusion, and will not take no for an answer. And a society that has been generally leaning towards a more medical model of disability, with this idea of people with disabilities being pretty much taken care of, and not having to work or do any of the things that this generation of folks says. Yes, we want to work. Yes, we want to date. Yes, we want to have sex. Yes, we want a life. Yes, we need representation in media. Yes, yes, yes. We want inclusion, and not only as a vague word, but we want it as something that is an active part of our existence. And we want it everywhere, and we want it now, and we don't want it over time, and we don't want it incrementally. And we don't want it to be given to us grudgingly. We're here to take it. And that's where we are now in terms of the disability rights movement. And it's fascinating because I mentioned that I'm middle-aged. One of the things that concerns me is part of the thing that I think happened with my generation and those that are in their 30s, 40s, late 30s, early 40s, and beyond is we had to fight for stuff, so we appreciated it a lot more. I, for example, I was always a student government nerd. I always believed in, being a part of um, government, whether that's student government or big boy government, as I call it. Um, but I ran for office in middle school and in high school, and I won all three races that I ran in. And what that did for me was it created confidence, but it also because it created confidence because I felt like I was accepted, and my peers really thought that I had something to contribute. But what it also did was it made me realize that things happen step by step by step.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed in the younger generation, and I'm gonna sound like an old man who's saying, "Get kids, get off my lawn now," but what that does is a lot of the things that this generation wants and rightfully deserves, they don't have to fight for in the same way that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it creates a sense of entitlement, but it also creates a problem where, when you have to fight for something and it's hard fought, and some days you would be broken by people's ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
and just you can't believe that you're having such difficulty explaining why you need an accessible bathroom, or why you need a note taker in your advanced English class, like I had to explain to my high school teacher. um, that is something that this generation, because they don't have to fight for it, there is a sense of apathy about it just being available. And so, I watch a lot of news because I'm a news junkie. And the first half of my professional career, I was actually a journalist. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah, that was another that was a lifetime ago.
Mm-hmm.
But what that does is you realize that um, there are so many things that if we don't keep fighting for them and keep renewing our desire to engage in them, they go away very easily. I look at the voting rights work that what people are fighting for in
Mm-hmm.
many states right now. And you know, if anything, that experience has underscored to me that the Americans with Disabilities Act may exist and may be codified into law, but unless we keep pushing the envelope as to what we need,
That's right.
like making places accessible for voters, like being involved in a drop box fight so that, if York County had 20 drop boxes and now it's being reduced to 10, and you have to take public transportation just to drop your ballot off, that you're included in that conversation. The civil protections that we take for granted and that we have come to expect as people with disabilities, all of those things are easily taken away. And that is a little bit scary to me. It's more than a little bit scary, it's very scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Uh,
I think a lot about, I've been thinking a lot about the work, I think just last week, it's been a year since John Lewis's death, and C.T. Vivian as well. And I think about how the life that, you know, we live has been built on the work that they've done, you know,
Yeah,
and how
and
relentless
we
they
take it for
were.
granted.
We take it, we do. It's easy because we were born into it as millennials. I'm speaking from the perspective of a millennial. We were born
Yeah,
into it. We didn't have to fight for it the way that they did. So yeah, it's easy to take it for granted.
and it's the same principle as what I'm saying about the ADA. I mean, when everything when the law is there, whether it's implemented to its highest degree or fullest degree or not, when the law is there, you kind of think that it'll always be there. Well, it doesn't always have to be there because there are always people that have reasons why this part of the law or that part of the law isn't um, to their liking, whether it's people that have business interests that say, oh, you know, it takes too long to get businesses passed and it's hurting businesses to have all these accessibility features, or whether it's polling places that are not accessible that say, look, why do we need so many accessible places? Because there aren't that many people who vote historically. All of those things are are easy to take away, and unlike, you know, I am a double minority, so I'm a person of color, and I'm a person with a disability, and there's a lot of things that could be said about intersectionality and all of that, which I won't get into at this point. But what I will say is that there are so many parallels between the Black experience and the disabled experience.
Yes.
And, you know, one of the wonderful things about the movie Crib Camp that resonated a lot with me was the whole sit-in thing where they said, oh, they formed coalitions with different groups and the Black Panthers were involved, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if you've seen Crib Camp, but
Yes, I
if
have.
you if you haven't, I recommend it highly.
It's an
But
amazing movie.
yeah, and it's wonderful because so much of our disability history is not taught. It's just not even. I mean, talk about when people talk now about critical race theory, and they, you know, and conservative media loves to use those buzzwords. It's kind of interesting to me because if the Black experience is not taught, the disabled experience is totally not taught. And that and it's weird because we are such an important part of the fabric of what makes our society function. I mean, I've watched as my family has aged, and disability, when you mention it in my family, typically what would come across everybody's view was, oh, it must be Damian and Darren. That's what disability meant. Well, as people of age, what we've seen is disability in some way affects everybody. Because as my parents are boomers, and they're now, you know, my mother uses a walker sometimes because of orthopedic back issues. My father in the last few years has developed Parkinson's disease, and I have other relatives that have developed other maladies that have come with age, and what that shows is that disability may be one idea when you're in your 20s, but when you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, it's a totally different construct. And so I'm fascinated by so much of how we all need to realize that disability, like I said before, is just such a natural part of life. And we need to not fear it, and we need to just embrace it and realize that ultimately we are all just trying to have an experience, right? We all we all at the end of the day just want to have a good life, a happy life, have people that love us and care about us, and feel like we're valued and respected in our spaces.
Mm-hmm. And how can we as a society move forward and create an accessible society that includes people with disabilities? And what are non-disabled people's role in that fight, would you say?
Well, there's a lot of talk in all different communities about the importance of having allies. And allies are super important because allies normalize the experience. Um, I'll tell you a brief story. Um, when I was in college, my senior year of college, I interned at the ABC affiliate here in Miami because I was a broadcast journalism major. And I decided that, unlike all the other college students, I really didn't want to go out with the reporters. I wanted to more write and produce because it was just, because of my physical limitations, it was just not doable at the time for me to go into the news truck and edit the packages with the reporters, etc. And what I did was, during my internship, I would produce the newscasts. Well, one day the executive producer of one of the shows said to me, "Get a notebook out of the filing cabinet and go log this tape," which meant basically writing down,
Yep.
sound
Mm-hmm.
for the tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a simple assignment, but I rolled back to the news desk, and they said, "Why do you look like so bothered?" And I said, "Because I can't reach the notebooks." And that's a really, really simple thing. But when you're in an environment where, everybody's hustle bustle, and you don't want your disability to show up, and be a barrier, you know, now in my 40s, I would just say, "Hey, could you grab that notebook for me?" I wouldn't let it bother me. But at the time, in my early 20s, it was a big deal. So he went and he got the notebooks, and he said, he went back and he wrote a memo saying, "We need to move the notebooks down from now on."
Mm.
And it was just a simple one-line memo. It was no big deal to anybody, but it was a huge deal to me,
Mm-hmm.
because what that meant was that person saw me and understood that it was a big deal that I couldn't reach notebooks. And that was acceptance. That was, "You're part of my environment, and I want you to be comfortable, and I want you to be able to do your job." So, you know, that is a simple story of acceptance, and it's been like 20 years since that happened, and I still remember it, because as simple a gesture as that was, it was a huge gesture to me. I think that the more we do that, and the more people with disabilities are just seen as people with all kinds of desires, all kinds of dreams, whether that's, family dreams or vocational dreams, whatever. I think that will go a long way towards creating the inclusion and diversity that we all want. Because at the end of the day, I- I've had many, many friends tell me that I've developed over the years that, you know, when people talked about something being accessible or not accessible, I understood what that meant on one level. But when it meant that you couldn't come into this bar, or you couldn't sit at the bar with us as your friends, as your colleagues, then I understood what it meant when you said this place is not accessible, because it's not an abstraction. It's really mean that they like and really mean that they want to spend time with, that is having that issue. And so it humanizes it in a way that a squishy word like diversity and inclusion doesn't seem to capture. Because ultimately it's about the human experience, right? So
Yeah, we are
did
all.
I answer your question?
Yes, you did. You answered my question very eloquently. We are all connected in our humanness.
To me, I'm hopeful that this era of everybody feeling empowered will be the rising tide that also lifts people with disabilities as well to become a part of the conversation. Because for so long we've been marginalized and paid lip service to. We all value lived experiences now. For most groups, we need to value the lived experiences of people with disabilities of all kinds. My deaf and hard of hearing brothers, my autistic sisters, my brothers and sisters that are blind, my cousins that have physical disabilities, we're all part of this beautiful mosaic that is America. But if nobody pays attention to us, we'll never get our little piece of the pie. And we need to be not content to always settle for crumbs when we really need a loaf of bread.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. We're definitely ready for a sea change, and 1.3 billion people, I think there's strength in numbers, and it's no time like the present for that disruption to happen. So
and
absolutely.
the good thing is, if there's any silver lining to this COVID situation, is that more people are becoming potentially disabled. And so what it'll mean maybe is it'll open up folks that have never experienced disability to have their stories be told. And that could be a silver lining, because when there are more numbers and more stories, hopefully there'll be more representation, because representation matters.
It's been an amazing conversation. I really appreciated your time. So thank you so much.
You asked me something and I did a huge disservice, and I just want to say one sentence, which is we do the education for Nothing About Us Without Us, but we also do consulting where we help people to access services and all of that. And we also do advocacy, like making sure that the public policy that needs to happen, that we help people to understand how to do it on their own. So I teach self-advocacy classes. And sometimes it's on a very basic level, like, knowing your time limits, knowing how to tell a story, those kinds of things, knowing who your public officials are, those little things, going to a meeting and knowing, okay, when you go to that meeting, what do you want to come out of that one meeting with? Those little things that I wanted to mention that we do, because we do quite a bit. Quite a bit.
I'm sure it's hard for you to keep up with all of the amazing things that you're doing. You're doing some great work, though.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity and allowing me to just kind of spout off.
The pleasure is all mine, believe me. Pleasure is all mine. And where can our audience keep up with you and all the amazing work that you're doing and Nothing About Us Without Us?
Our website is www.nothingaboutus.com, and we're relatively new, so we're always open to doing new and exciting things. So feel free to drop us a line if you have a problem, question, want to just talk, or need to make a connection with other people with disabilities. We're here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for being a guest. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
I really and truly loved chatting with Damian, such a brilliant individual, and I really left our conversation with so much knowledge and insight about how we can use this past year and a half as a way to learn and to move forward to create an equitable and accessible future. I mean, we are far from out of the woods with COVID, but he really outlined why we need to prioritize disability inclusion to prevent worse outcomes. So thank you so much for listening to, watching, or reading today's episode. You can find transcripts and American Sign Language interpretations for each and every episode of What's Up WID on our website at www.wid.org/what's-up-WID. And as per usual, we are closing out with our famous last words here on What's Up WID. To paraphrase one of our founders, Ed Roberts, we need to get out there and change the old attitudes so we can build forward better. Thank you once again, and I'll talk to you next time.